Good morning. I hope everyone had a good weekend. I'm VR Small. I am the founder and CEO for the Veteran Women's Enterprise Center, and I want to welcome you to our Monday morning message. First, we want to make sure that you all stay and get connected. We are so blessed this summer to have COVID-19 funding. I want to make sure everyone knows how to access our programming and fill out an application. So very quickly, we're going to share our screen and take you to our website before we get started with our program. So this is a Veteran Women's Enterprise Center website here. If you're interested in our COVID-19 program, our next level business transformation, on our main page, you can find the application. Before you fill out the application, make sure you go to the main page for the program. There's an overview for qualifications, tells you about the program, what you will receive as a participant, and it goes over the critical technical assistance that will be provided. Also this summer provided for COVID-19 funding is our Life by Design coaching session. This is a 4-week coaching program brought to you through our COVID-19 summer scholarships. This program is normally $200 per person. We've been able to get scholarships for women that are interested for $50. It is limited to 15 and it is first come, first serve. This program is open until Wednesday, and our next level transformation, you need to get your applications in by tomorrow. Now, there were some difficulties with our technology, so the information went out a little late. We are talking to our board about extending the application period, but please share. The COVID-19 program offers you 25 hours of critical technical assistance. You will also receive a $5,000 grant via a debit credit card, a secure debit credit card. You'll get 26-week personal coaching program. You'll also receive virtual mentoring, and we'll be working with you through summer 2021. So this is a great program. If you want to know more about it, all of the technical assistance areas are covered here. And again, this application process is open until tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. So please get your applications in now. So also we will be continuing with our Trending Thursdays tips. This Thursday starts part 1 of our 3-part series, The Business of Service, making connections or lifelong connections with your customers. We invite you to participate, and also remember the Eventbrite space is open for Women Warriors Winning the Business Battle on August 19th. We are doing our first pitch prep boot camp with PenFed. You will not want to miss this. So make sure you go onto our website or our social media pages for more information and how to get linked in. So we don't want to delay this any further. I'm so happy to have Mr. Austin with us. Mr. Austin is our SBA DFW District Manager. Mr. Austin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We've been trying to get you on this program for a while, so I'm really excited to finally have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us. I know that there is a lot going on, so we want to make sure we get to it. First, I believe the PPP and the EIDI program, they closed applications for that second round this weekend?
Correct.
Correct. So what's the next step for business owners if they missed that application period, or say they did get into the application period and they have the funding now? What should they be doing?
Well, if you miss if you're a small business and you miss that opportunity, you still should and can apply for the EIDL program. Okay. And there is another program we just introduced. So, you know, I'm always baffled at the fact that the program that opened up since April the 3rd, we're still getting called last week about people who want to apply. It's either a lack of information or not willing to look for required and necessary information on the part of the small business owner. but it's, quite frankly, we had an extension of the program, and it produced nothing in terms of more applications coming in.
Really?
Absolutely not. I mean, we're still shutting down with $130 billion unspent.
Oh my
So
goodness.
Before the extension, we had just about the same amount. So, and it may not be the small business. It's most likely the lenders. I will tell you that when we extended the program for a few days, most of the lending institutions had decided not to participate in. They were more concerned about the millions of loans that were already made, and small businesses as of today would be coming to them for forgiveness. So they had to be prepared for that occasion. So they had basically stopped taking loans.
So how is the SBA going to overcome that? You reopened it, we have all of this money, but if the lenders aren't lending, how do we get this money to the small business owners? What's the next step?
The program is shut down as of
Right.
8. So banks that were still willing to accept application only had until the 4th of the month to receive the application, to process the application, to submit it to the SBA no later than last Saturday at 11 p.m. our time. So there is money, but it's no longer available for the program because the program shut down. So the issue is $130 billion. What does the Congress and the president intend to do with those funds?
Right,
And
right.
there have been talk about allowing firms to apply a second time so that they recognize that even though a lot of people might have already applied early April, but they were never able to really reopen fully, because we're hearing from people we still have a need for money. So it may very well be that the money will be used to allow small business who had initially applied to apply again, and there will be some criteria. So not all businesses would be eligible to apply.
Mr.
So we are
Austin,
still.
no. Mr. Austin, I heard that too. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I was talking to a couple of business owners in preparation for our call, and I was asking, did they get approved? And there were businesses that said they did get approved, but not for what they requested, not enough money to really do what they needed to do. So what you were just saying is that they may be able to apply again and get more money or get what they need.
That is correct. That is correct. But the businesses who have applied for PPP, the amount of the loan was unquestionable. So I'd be surprised to see businesses saying, well, we really did not get what we required, because the formula was very straightforward. Average payroll times 2.5 was the amount of the loan to be requested, to the bank from the customer. So I don't see how you will request 10,000, the bank will give you 9,000, or you request 500,000, the bank gives you less, because the formula is already set by law. So
the bank doesn't need to do any adjustments.
Yeah, the PP really, very few people will argue that, we didn't get the money we requested, because that was very simple formula, which was already set by status, right? So the EIDL, on the other hand, this is where the SBA makes this decision for you, based on information you provided. And we're seeing many people saying, the money that you've given me is not sufficient for me.
Right. That may have been.
Yeah, that may be the EIDL. In that case, the client, all they have to do is to request a reconsideration. So they will give them more money, provided that they provide a lot more information than they had previously. Right? So, yeah. So, but the PPP, it was straightforward. Come up with your payroll for a number of clients, or if you're self-employed, your own payroll, on monthly payroll, yearly payroll divided by 12, give us the average times 2.5 is the amount that you're seeking, and that's what you would be submitting to the bank as a request. So there are no issues there. The issue is when SBA under the EIDL has to make a decision for the small business, and we're seeing many cases where the small business might have made a mistake in the preparation of the application. Apparently, there is a cost of goods sold. So when you put a number there, it brings way down the amount of the loan that you'll be getting. So we are telling consumers, really, you should have put in 0. So we're seeing cases where SBA will come back and say to the client, you're not eligible for any money based on your application, because there would have been a mistake in the application, but they can go back and request a reconsideration.
Mr. Austin, what is the big difference in usage? I know some of our clients have talked about a lot of confusion around. Clearly, the PPP was for payroll, so that was to keep staff on, and there was some other uses that it could be applied for. But what was the EID? How could they use that money? What was that really designed? What issues or what kinds of expenses was EIDI really designed to support for the business? And I know nonprofits were able to apply for that too. So how is that money really designed to be used?
Very, very flexible, very flexible. So think of it as a working capital loan, but it must be spent on the way the SBA came up with a formula to give you a loan is to support you during the pandemic. So they just taken February. It started, so March, April, May were the tough times, even though we're still in tougher times now. But then they come up with a formula whereby they will allow you to have enough money to spend during the next 3 to 6 months. And those money can be spent for your debt and liability. So let's take an example of a person in March could not pay their rent, could not pay their mortgage, could not pay their utility bills, could not pay their transportation costs because there is transportation involved in their work. So all these, that's what the money is designed for, to really help you pay. Now, many people are asking us, can I buy a business with that money? Well, obviously, it's not the eligible use of the funds. The funds were to be used for COVID-19, for the pandemic, because you suffered, you are affected by it. If you want to buy a new business, you ought to go and apply for a regular 7A loan. That means you're doing well. You don't need money now. So that would be a good use of money. Now you may ask, well, Herb, if I do that, how would the SBA know? That is so true. Whereas the PPP there will be serious auditing of every single PPP loan, one by the bank as you present your documentation for the forgiveness, but also by SBA. Not just the 2 million up to 10 million. Most of the loans will be looked at because there have been so many fraud going on in the program. But under the EIDL, there will be some auditing. They will probably audit some application that they will be looked at afterwards, right? So people may be a little bit more flexible to use the funds, but my recommendation would be use it for what your liabilities were, your debt were during the pandemic, which is continuing. So use it for it. So ideally, I say to people from the beginning, apply for both, one for payroll and the other one as a working capital loan where you can use it for any liabilities or debt you may have incurred. And keep in mind that it's a 30 years repayment. So why not take that loan anyway?
Right. As some working capital. Mr. Austin, another good question that we had were people were really confused or questioning, how did the SBA make a decision between who got those grants, because there were initially grants available, and then who was actually offered loans? Was there any kind of a rhyme or reason how that happened, or was it till the money just ran out?
Yeah, what happened, as you probably know, the program was created in 2 weeks. So a lot of mistakes were made in putting together a program where we right now we have 12 million applications to manage, right? So what happened? Yeah, there are two set of monies. One was designed for the advance, and one was designed for the loan itself. The advance money, initially, if you recall, the wording was 10,000 upfront and advance, of course, in 3 days, which would have been impossible. So then they realized, wait a minute, we have limited funds. We cannot do 10,000 per employee per application, per applicant. We need to reduce it to 1,000 per employee. So that created a lot of issues in the marketplace. Then they started to help out a lot of small businesses who, a lot of fraud, again, maybe about $500 million were fraudulent, people applying. They had no staff members initially. They were reporting 10 and they were cutting checks of 10,000 to folks who never had a business, because there was very little bit of monitoring on the front side. So they ran out of money on that advance, which was totally separate funds, separate funds
right.
from the loan program that that Office of Disaster is managing. In fact, the EIDL was strictly the Washington program. I'm sorry, the advance was strictly, managed in Washington. And when they ran out of money, they just had to stop. In the process, a lot of people didn't get money. They only got the loan. A lot of other people who applied for the loan and the advance only got the advance. When they offered them the loan, they said they didn't want the loan. They just wanted the advance. And a lot of people, as I said, we're getting about 30 calls a day on people calling on frauds. People who got advance who should not have gotten it because they don't even have a business to begin with. So we ran out of money quickly, the advance.
Wow. Okay. Well, so that money ran out in the first round. So when the second round came around, although people were applying for it, we probably didn't have any left in that second round.
There was still money.
Oh, there was. Okay.
They stopped the advance not long ago. A lot of people who might have applied for since the first time were unfortunate that they didn't get money and other people got. So it's confusing to me also. As people who had applied the other day, remember when they reopened the portal, only the farmers and agricultural firms could apply. And then they reopened it for everybody. There are people who had applied right after who were getting money before people who had applied back in March. So I can figure it out.
Okay.
Yes.
So for those people, because PPP is really for payroll, EID, as you said, could have been like that working capital to pay some of their bills. What happens to individuals, particularly small business owners, who hadn't really been paying themselves? They've been running their business, reinvesting everything back in their business, so they didn't really have an actual payroll. Can they use, if they got an EIDI loan, can they now use that money for, per se, their payroll or supporting consultants or bringing people on to help them? Because now you have all of these emergencies, cybersecurity, data loss, all of these things that are going on. Can they use that EIDI for that?
Absolutely. You can actually use it for payroll purposes as well. What you cannot do is get a PPP and an EIDL and use any of the funds for the same purpose.
Okay.
As long as I decide, well, I didn't get the PPP, I didn't apply for it, I applied for EIDL, hoping a lot more money that I can use for payroll, for everything else for myself. Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I know we had some questions from some of our members around that. So I hope you guys got that information that PPP was designed for payroll. EIDI was designed as kind of your working capital to pay some of those bills. But if you didn't get PPP, you can use your EIDI if you received that loan for payroll, for bringing on consultants, for the kind of work that you need to do to support your business through this pandemic. Now, Mr. Austin, we know that in I think it was the second round of the CARES Act, additional money was given to the small business development centers and also to the women business centers. Do you know how they're using that money to support the community? Has there been any communications with you guys, particularly here in the DFW area?
I had to say, when money was given to these organizations, we were the last one to find out. And I might have found out from you, I guess, because I had no idea. And this is a reality, and this is the unfortunate part when SBA Washington, they take action, and we are the last one to know. So likewise, when they deal with the lending communities that we work on a daily basis with, a lot of times we learn from the bank what happened in Washington. So similarly, we had no idea that money was given to these organizations. We are assuming that somebody else is monitoring it. Certainly, they have not asked us to do that. And I think the money was given for them to be able to provide the additional assistance to small business. I know that a lot of small businesses had difficulty filling out applications. I can imagine right now for the forgiveness, a lot of small businesses will be looking for assistance from the SBDCs and from, SCORE didn't even get a single penny. And
No,
I'm sure they can do
neither
a
did
decent
the
job as
V-Box.
well.
I don't think
Yeah,
the V-Box got any money either.
No, they did not get. As you know, the VBOC, they primarily to do, not so much counseling, but training
Right.
in the military. They were set up that way. So,
But Mr. Austin, they would have been a great resource for the veteran community because a lot of veterans still connect with them for support, even though most of their training is done on the installations. They are kind of a community resource, and they have their different events that the veteran community is aware of. So I'm sure a lot of people kind of reached out to them saying, what's next? And I don't know if they had the resources or the support to really assist the community.
And they didn't have the staffing either, VR, because remember, the way they are designed is strictly to cover not just this area, but other states with
Right.
1 or 2 or 3 people maximum. So it was never intended for them to do one-on-one counseling.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when someone calls here, I'm a veteran, I understand that you have a Veterans Outreach Center, can I reach out to them? Most likely, the Veterans Outreach Center will send them to SCORE and SBDC, which we could have done initially. And That's the truth. And not that they don't have the ability to do that, they don't have the capacity, the human capacity to provide one-on-one counseling. So we do refer people, instead of saying to the small business who calls, I really want to speak to a veteran business, counselor, we normally explain to them a little bit. We can refer it to SCORE, SBDC, and Women Business Center. But what we do, we still send you to the Veterans Business Outreach Center because there might be a great source of other information that we're not aware of, other information of grants. Yeah, so that's how we do, but we don't expect them to sit down one-on-one with the client.
Well, I do know that on Capitol Hill, a couple of the representatives out of the Veteran Affairs Committee are now talking about possibly having some funding in this next round, specifically for veteran organizations or programs that are supporting veterans. So the conversation is on the table about giving some additional money to the VBOC so that they can join in this process of supporting our small business community, and particularly our veteran entrepreneurs.
And that make a lot of sense here, because as I said, the small business calls, for 25, 30 years ago was more like, when I go to score in SBDC, I don't see anybody who looks like me. That's what the women used to say. And that's how the WBCs were created. But now the veterans continue calling. They feel more comfortable to get somebody who just like them has served, who will understand their issues a little bit better, I guess. So it does make sense to give them money so they can hire people and take that responsibility of offering one-on-one counseling and more training. Yeah.
Mr. Austin, let's talk a little bit about the DFW area. Did you guys receive any numbers about how the CARES Act was able to support the DFW area? Like how many businesses was able to get to the table? What was the average funding that came to our area, or were those numbers more reported from a national perspective?
We do have, and I can make it available to you, we do have numbers by state. Up to today, we do not have numbers by district office, offices or by county. We know based on the number by state that we have a big share of it. So we know that we are number 3 in units, number 2 in dollars in the country, and a big part of it is us. So we know that we've done extremely well in our district office in terms of lending, but we don't have data. How many jobs were retained? How many jobs were created? We are trying to dissect numbers to know exactly, because we've been questioned by the media. They think we have the information. Some people still concerned about how many jobs were you able to create because they're reading bad numbers. They claim, a lot of information was published, by borrowers. The SBA had published, by per borrowers how many jobs were created, how much they were making, and again, these were questioned a lot by business saying that's not true. I never created any job, even though I received $500,000. So they wanted SBA and the Treasury to go back and make the proper correction. But we don't have this data. We don't have data in terms of what we did. We know we did very, very well. Of the 5 million loans, we know we had a big chunk here. Of the 520 billion in lending, we know we had a big chunk in the district, but we don't have the exact data to date. We have an idea, but we don't.
Mr. Austin, I want to backtrack a little bit. You were talking about the decisions that the banks made. What role did the CDFIs play in this lending process, and what role do you envision them playing as we continue? I know we're talking about more CARES Act. It seems the whole conversation is around unemployment. I haven't really heard a conversation around the business community and what's going to continue to be available, or what support is available for the business community. So the debate seems to be housing, it seems to be unemployment, and no longer business. So what are you hearing about what's next for the business community, and what is the role that the CDFIs is or will be playing?
I mean, they played a major role in the PPP. As you may know, they were giving money so they can make loans, and they must be the only organizations that could make a loan of $1,000 to a small business. And that was unbelievable when I heard that from Lift Fund. Their lowest amount was $1,000. And really, they did a good job in nurturing businesses, in providing the funds that they needed, regardless of size. Of course, they were given money by Goldman Sachs. They were given money by the SBA, by the Treasury, to assist them in the process. On the second time around, particularly the first time, they hardly were active. But as we go further, and you may not know yet, the program has just been introduced less than 3 weeks ago, and it's shutting down already on September the 28th. Right now, we have an existing program called the Community Advantage.
Okay.
know about the community advantage up to $250,000 per client only, if, and 30% of the loans must be to minorities and underserved communities. So, and we're not seeing that many loans anyway, you know, of our two active CDFIs, namely the Fund and People Fund. BCL of Texas, hardly anything from them. Their concentration is in housing and making their own loans. So the program now that we created is called the Community Advantage Recovery Loan Program, known as CARL, C-A-R-L. The way the program is designed is, again, same $250,000, maximum, no minimum. The repayment terms, regular SBA 7A, you know, minimum 5 years. Under the program, it can go up to 20 if you purchase fixed asset and equipment. The terms, SBA will pay the interest and for the first 6 months of the year, the SBA will pay all the expenses. The CDFIs will be given money so that they can provide at a maximum 15 hours of counseling to the applicants. So the SBA will also pay for that. SBA will give them a fee for every loan that they underwrite. So the program just started, and I don't think there are any applications yet because the program is shutting down already the 28th. You know, the SBA is trying to...
Is that the 28th of August or the 28th of September?
September.
Okay, so we got a little bit of time. We have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I think the key word in that, Mr. Austin, was recovery. So what can those funds be used for? Because you were speaking about businesses. You said, hey, I want to buy a franchise, or some of our businesses may have already been like pushed out. So say they couldn't pay their bills, they couldn't pay their suppliers, they didn't get to the table for any of this SBA money, and they're already at the, you know, close sign. So what do those business owners do? Can they use this money to restart, or is this only recovery? You know, how can this money be distributed? How can the business owners use this money?
For any of their needs. For any of their needs, meaning you could have had a payroll one, AIDL one, now you want to apply this as you take your business to the next level, or you're pivoting to something else, and you need the money to help you in the process. So the money can actually be used for anything. You know, you can use it to take your business forward. We figure that backward, we've already taken care of you in the EIDL and PPP. So it's an opportunity for you to do whatever you need to do, you know, to keep your business, you know, alive and to create other opportunities for others.
So that's great. I hope our listeners heard that. So this new community, tell us the name again, Mr. Austin.
It's called the Community Advantage Recovery Loan Program, known as CARL, yes. And only the CDFIs can make these loans, similar to the, you know, the regular community advantage. You don't go to a bank. You have to go to Leaf Fund in this area. You have to go to People Fund in this area in order to apply. And I would urge anybody who has interest to, and again, the beauty of it is just for minorities, strictly for minorities.
Mr. Austin, did you say what the interest rate was? I know the SBA is picking up the interest rate for the first 6 months, but what is that interest rate?
The interest rate, it's a little bit high.
I'm sorry, it's a little bit high. What is it, Mr. Austin? What is that interest rate?
So the SBA will pay the principal and interest for 6 months, as we're doing now on all loans.
You're going to pay the principal and the interest for 6 months.
Exactly. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I should have said it that way. So the first 6 months, SBA is paying, as you know, we've been doing that for all loans. You know, for 6 months, we've been paying interest and capital since April. You know, for the first 6 months. So right now, I might have misread it via, that's why I try to avoid it. What I think I saw was the prime rate plus 6. That puts us to 9.25%. I think I might have read it wrong. But generally speaking, the 7A loans will be prime plus 2.25%. that puts you at 550. I cannot imagine, a loan will be that much higher. And I suspect the expectation is people will be applying for smaller amount that carries interest rate, a bigger interest rate. So even now, if you go to SBA loans and you're applying for 30, 40, 50 smaller amount, you pay the higher interest naturally. Well, it shouldn't be naturally, not that I agree with the concept, but I may have read it for small loans might be that amount, so that's what I had to take a look at the program again. I believe I might have misread, but I've seen 3.25% plus 6, which is what the Community Advantage program carries now for smaller loan. And what is a smaller loan? I think truly small, maybe 25, 30, 40,000, which is the likely amount that a lot of people apply for under the Community Advantage. But
So
I get you that.
The amount is up to 250, but they don't have to apply for 250. They can apply for a small.
No, it's up to, very much like the Community Advantage. Under the Community Advantage, I have yet to see a loan of that amount of 250. As a matter of fact,
applications are where? They're with the CDFIs, they're on the FBA website. Where are the applications?
No, strictly a bank loan. Remember,
Okay.
It's a bank guaranteed by the SBA. A guarantee, 150 or less, which is 85%, and 75%, anything from 150 or 01 up to 250. Regular 7A. You go to your bank of account, you apply. Lift fund, I know that they spoke about it, and they told us a person can go on their site,
Okay.
see the information and apply.
Okay. That sounds good. So I know that the SBA had put together a website. It was really kind of a collaboration of everything that was available via the SBA. And we linked it on to our website. Have you heard anything about that, Mr. Austin, or any input about how effective that's been and how people are using it?
No, I have never seen that website. I've never, maybe I never paid attention to it. We've been so busy here, as you know, with those calls coming in, it's about an average of 150 a day. But now what the calls are coming in so rapidly for fraud. People who discover that somebody committed fraud and they want to report it to us. And so I haven't, we have become last 3-4 months, quite frankly, another type of SBA. There is hardly any time to read anything that is coming from Washington other than PPP and EIDL related stuff.
So we're going to share our page just really quick for the attendees and take you to where this information is on our website. So you can go here and you'll go to our COVID-19 center, and then under federal resources, this is a link to the SBA's consolidated page. They kind of go over here and they write up why they consolidated all of this information and then how you can get there. And when you go to the page, this is all their financial assistance, contracting assistance, what was going on with PPA. I think now they'll be telling you how to go and get forgiveness. So this is kind of a consolidated link of all of their programs and how you can get connected. So that kind of made it really, easy for you to go and find what you need instead of jumping to all of the different websites. I believe the small business development centers, as well as the women business centers, all of their information can be linked up from that page. And again, that's at our COVID-19 resource page, and it's at the very top. It says federal resources. So I want to open up to the floor. If there's any questions in the chat room, any questions for Mr. Austin that I haven't addressed, now would be the time to go ahead and post your questions in chat, and we will get them answered for you. Mr. Austin, while they're pulling their questions together, if there are any questions, let's talk a little bit about what people need to be doing now. Those people that did get the PPP loan, I know there was an extension on how long they can use it and when they need to start reporting back. What does that look like now?
Well, as you know, the program shut down on Saturday, and
Mhm.
all banks have been sent information on the process of the forgiveness, because a lot of the banks, of course, did not know what's going on. In fact, we still hadn't, the most asked questions was sent out only last week. We were informed about it only last week. So as of today, I know that some small businesses are anxious to go to their bank, starting today. A lot of people don't know it yet, I guess, but today is the first day where someone can go in with their application, with their backup documentation, and ask for the forgiveness. And another thing we didn't speak about here is that we were saying that ideally the payroll, the PPP can be used for payroll and the EIDL for everything else. As you know, the PPP can also be used. There are a couple of parts that can be forgiven independent of payroll. So if you have a PPP and you can actually use it as well to pay your rent, to pay your utilities, you can do that with your PPP as long as you don't do the same with the EIDL and get the entire loan forgiven. Because
Say that
ideally,
again, Mr. Austin. That's some good news. Say that again, Mr. Austin.
Under the PPP, what can be forgiven? Initially, before June the 5th, it would be 8 weeks, to use the funds. And 75% at a minimum had to be for payroll.
Mhm.
So if you use less than 75%, you will be carrying some debt, because that's the law. And if you remember, that had changed to 60-40.
Mhm.
Initially, you can use the funds for 8 weeks, but it was never only for payroll. The 75% has to be for payroll, but you can use the 25% for other debts. For example, the person who has to pay interest, the person who has to pay utilities, during that time, during those 8 weeks of covered period, all those charges could also be forgiven. So it's not unusual that when you go to the bank and you can have all your loan forgiven.
That's awesome.
75%, yes, 75 has to be for, and that's the key. But you can spend 25% on other expenses that are allowed under the PPP program. The utility, because they had expenses. Now, if you take the funds from the ID and you use it for the same, obviously you can't, because you would have already spent it on the other one. But you're better off spending it on the payroll PPP, because the entire loan will be forgiven.
Exactly.
You have absolutely nothing to pay. Yes.
So, Mr. Austin, they extended that period because it was 8 weeks, and then it got extended to how many weeks?
For 24 weeks. So they changed the formula at the request of small businesses who were saying, it's going to take me a while to bring people back. You're
Right.
telling me from date of disbursement and 8 weeks later, that's the covered period. So they says we need more time. We have to call people. People who are unemployment, they got to stop taking unemployment to get back. So we needed more time. So the covered period became 24 weeks. And so it's 24 weeks, but the formula changed also. It's 60-40. So 60% at a minimum must be spent on payroll. And there are a lot of changes to the program as well. Some people were saying, well, what happened if I had 8 staff members before. Now, because of limited capacity, limited sales, I can only bring in 4. Do I get penalized for that? Right? Because it was a job creation program. I want you to bring 4, but you're saying I can't. I had 8 people working full time. Now I can only bring 8 people on a part-time basis. Mm-hmm. Do I get penalized for that? So there are a lot of regs. That's why I say to people, go to the expert who can assist you in the forgiveness application, because there are a lot of changes as a result, of people not being able to bring everybody back, and it was the money you were giving was based on that payroll for 8 people. Now you're saying I can only bring 4 people. After 8 weeks, what do? I still have some money left, so there were some questions. So the program, again, as I said, was created in a week and a half. So they kept on changing along the way.
So that 24 weeks, does that start from the time their loan is approved, from the time the money is deposited in their account, or when does that 24 weeks start?
From the date of disbursement. So from the date the money is not up, the application is not approved, but the money is deposited in your account, you have 24 weeks or December 31st. Everything has to shut down by December 31st. So if you are the last to apply, if you are fortunate enough to apply, submit an application on the 4th of August, I know Leaf Fund was taking application until the 6th of August, and so you no longer have 24 weeks. And you probably, no, you don't. August, September, you hardly have four months, which would be 16 weeks. So by December 31st, everything ends. So you would have to use the funds and hire people during that time.
Now, take that analogy that you gave about the person that had 8 employees, they could only bring 4 back. What if 4 of those employees they couldn't bring back because they just refused to come back? Could they have hired 4 new employees?
Yes. As a matter of fact, initially they had changed again. If you had 8 employees, you got to bring back 8 employees. And people started to realize, well, I'm on unemployment. I don't want to come back to work for less money. So people were having difficulty bringing people back for a while. So they decided, well, let's change it to 24. Gives you a lot of time. That's why the change took place. But even with the change, they say you have to bring back the same amount of people. But now they're making a lot of exceptions. If you can prove to me that you offered a job to someone on paper, documented, and because they've chosen unemployment in lieu of the job, and you would have written a letter to that department that handles unemployment, so you've done everything you possibly could have done, we give you that exception. We will consider that you had that employee working.
Great. So businesses know if you did have employees that for whatever reason they decided they did not want to come back to work for you, but you needed that staff person, you can use your PPP to hire a replacement for that person so that you can get your business, up and running. The EIDL is still open, Mr. Austin, until when?
The IDL, it may be open for a while. Apparently, they have received close to 12 million applications. As you know, all of them are being processed in one single office. I don't know when they will ever end, but it's still open. But we're seeing less and less application, of course. I think people who would have applied have already applied.
Okay.
So I don't think, unless they allow people to apply.
We have a question here in chat. Is there an extension for EIDL for businesses that have not fully reopened? So the EIDL, that's an extended loan. And so you guys are paying, they don't have to make any payments for 12 months, right?
You don't have to make any payment or principal, that's correct. Interest and principal for 12 months. So from date of disbursement, when SBA sends you that offer and you accept, you sign the documents, from that time on, you have 1 full year to start paying.
Okay. Now let me ask you something. We hear this all the time with stores, and they tell you interest deferred for 12 months. But is that interest still piling up, Mr. Austin? For that 12 months?
So yeah. So the SBA the interest, you continue to accumulate that interest for that year, yes.
But when they come back, it's still the payment that you offer them. It's still the 2.75%, but they still owe that interest for the first year. There's not a balloon payment, is there?
No, it's already added. So remember, they send you calculations for 30 years. The interest after a year is already added. Some people misunderstood that. Some people assume that, oh my God, the interest for that full year will be X amount of dollars. I better return the money instead of having to carry so much money in interest rate. And that's not the way it would work. It's already figured out in the numbers. So when you get that offer or when you accept it and they tell you, okay, for 30 years, you're going to be paying $400 a month, that interest for the first year, as a matter of fact, for the next 30 years, is already included.
That's good information. I heard businesses say that too, that they didn't want a balloon payment because there was really no definition of how that interest was going to be paid. So that's good to know that it's calculated into the whole 30-day plan. The other question I did hear from some small business owners was anything above 25K, they needed to back up with some kind of, I think it needed to be secured.
This is so unfortunately the way those programs were managed. You know, the PPP, there are no requirements. There are no credit requirements. There is no personal, guarantee requirement. There is absolutely nothing, right? Half a page of information, you can send it out, you can like, but for the EIDL, it's a government program. I mean, it's amazing, over 25, I have people saying, well, what happens if I accept 24? Because and they're right. You know, why should I provide personal, guarantee? You want me to put up this house, my is for $25,000 when I can do $24,500. Yeah. So, there's a credit requirement. So now they're sitting over almost 600,000 requests for reconsideration because if your credit, as you might have heard, less than 570, they automatically deny you a loan and they ask you to, you can request your reconsideration if you can make an argument why it has gone that low. So, and those requirements not apply for the PPP, which I thought was very unfair. But yes, you're required to put a lot of applications, a lot of guarantees for 25,000 or more. Yes.
But they could have accepted less. So someone that got approved for 25 could have said, I only want 20, and not had to put up that additional money.
That's cool. As a matter of fact, I think the way you get the offer, it says, 35,000, and you can choose between $1 to $35,000.
Exactly,
so you can call the amount that you need. Yeah. But a lot of these people did not know.
Exactly.
That if they say, well, I want 35,000 or even more, that they have to put their life, on as a guarantee.
Mr. Austin, this was awesome. We're down to about 2 minutes. So I just want to remind our listeners, because I did hear a lot of people get back to us about they didn't have money to put up against these loans. So the EIDL is still open. You can still reapply. And if you cannot put anything up for the 25K, you can definitely request a smaller amount of money, but make sure if you need funding, that you do get to the table for these programs. Mr. Austin, do you have any closing words for our listeners?
Well, the first thing I want to remind everybody there is that, we have become almost the call center for the country. So if you have difficulty reaching out to that 800 number, the place the loans are being processed, they hardly take phone calls, or they don't take phone calls. So people are calling an 800 number, they cannot get answers. They can feel free to send us the information, send us an email with the loan application number, the last status they've received, have they received any email from that center. Many times people don't tell us all that, but to give us enough information for us to go back to the disaster center. We have a contact person, and they can come back to us and give you a status where your loan is.
I do want to, there was one more question in the chat. So say a business did get the EIDL loan, they got it early on, they've used that money. Can they reapply for more since the program is still open?
No, they cannot reapply for more. They should have reapplied at when the offer was made. Let's say they were hoping for 100,000. They couldn't believe they only got 50. They accepted it, they used it. It would be too late for them to apply unless the program allows later on for people to come back and apply again, which is very, very unlikely sitting on 12 million applications, right? So I would say to that person, you should not have accepted that 50,000. You should have asked for a reconsideration right away, or if you accept it, still request a reconsideration. But if you use the funds now, it might be a little bit too late to go back and say, I need more money. Now, I would say you can still try. You know, you can request a reconsideration. You didn't get enough money. But normally what happens, they made an offer and people would say, I cannot live with this. So they will reconsider, which is another step that you have to wait a long time for, since they have so many applications for reconsideration.
Right. So even though the program is still open, it's not open for you to reapply again if you've already received a loan. It's open to process those loans that are still outstanding.
And it may still be open for you to request a consideration by going to you can
if you did not
request
already accept a loan.
Exactly. And if you already accepted it, as I know there are rules and regs, very well. If I was in a predicament, I would still request a reconsideration, and it would be, the language would be, I have accepted 2 months ago your offer of 50,000. That the numbers seem to suggest that I should have gotten more money in the first place. And that's when they are going to start asking you information they had not asked you before. One of them is your income tax return, for last year. And they will ask you to fill out a form, which is the 4506T, as in Tom, for them to request that form for you, because they want to make sure the same form you provided to IRS is the form you provided to them. The second thing they will ask you to do is another analysis, to send me some financial information that will show that clearly 50,000 would have never made it. It was a mistake to begin with. So
it's not an easy thing to get that reconsideration.
It takes time. It takes time, especially for the person who has already accepted it. But if I was in that predicament, I would try anything I can, because it doesn't cost you much. All it is, it costs you a little bit of time. I think it's PDC reconsideration at sba.gov. So there is a website where all the reconsiderations go. And the argument would be what I've just stated. Though I accepted 50, 100,000, 3 months later, I knew all along that couldn't support my business. Besides the fact that things have not gotten any better, I like a reconsideration. So I will not discourage anybody to take that 15, 20 minutes of their time to do that. Again, they will send you a list of information to be sent with that reconsideration letter.
Okay. Mr. Austin, thank you so much. This was really informative. I want to respect your time and our attendees' time. It's 11:04, about to be 11:05. We want to thank everyone for joining us. Next week, we hope to have our VA representatives online around our VA verification process and what's happening at the federal level. Make sure you look for our flyers and get registered. Mr. Austin, thank you again for a very informative conversation and for all the work that you and your team are doing for the DFW area.
Thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you for your leadership of this great organization.
All right. Have a good day, everyone, and have a great week.
Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.